Welcome to the podcast summary of Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy is one of those movies people keep returning to, even when they don't fully agree on whether it works as a story. Part of that comes from how it treats technology less like a shiny miracle and more like a moral choice. And part of it comes from the sheer force of its design, its sound, and the strange emotional pull of that digital world. Under all the neon and Daft Punk, it's really asking a very human question. What do we lose if we try to optimize everything? One of the more interesting things around the film is that it frames technological progress as something messy and consequential, not automatically good, just because it's advanced. Jeff Bridges talked about it in almost mythic terms, like we're all trying to navigate technological waters without fully understanding the wake we're leaving behind. He used the example of single-use plastic bottles and interconnected food chains, which is a pretty grounded way of saying convenience can outlive the decision that created it. That idea sits right at the center of the movie. The question isn't whether digital systems are powerful, of course they are. It's whether human connection can survive inside a world increasingly shaped by code, control, and abstraction. The movie gives that big, abstract concern a simple emotional anchor through Kevin Flynn and his son, Sam. Their reconciliation matters because it keeps the story from becoming just a lecture about technology. It turns the whole thing into a question about care, absence, and what can't be patched like software. Kevin's sacrifice lands in that space too. It suggests that being human involves limits, grief, responsibility, and love. And those things don't become cleaner just because the interface does. That tension gets embodied in Clue, who's maybe the clearest expression of the film's warning label. He's an exact digital duplicate of Kevin Flynn. But he takes Flynn's desire for perfection and turns it into a rigid technical doctrine. For Clue, order is the goal. Anything unpredictable looks like an error to be removed. That's why the ISOs matter so much. In the film's mythology, they're spontaneous life. They emerge on their own, which means they represent discovery that wasn't engineered from above. Clue can't tolerate that. He classifies them as flaws and destroys them, and that turns his rebellion into more than a villain plot. It's a conflict between design control and organic evolution, between the fantasy that everything can be perfected and the possibility that imperfection is where new life actually begins. For a big studio sci-fi sequel, that's a surprisingly old-fashioned and almost spiritual argument. Quorra carries a lot of that idea in a more personal way. Olivia Wilde and the filmmakers built her as an unconventional action character, drawing on Joan of Arc's selflessness and spiritual conviction, mixing that with an androgynous look and a kind of childlike curiosity. The goal wasn't to make her a standard sci-fi seductress. They wanted someone who could connect across genders and feel a little harder to categorize. And that's what makes her memorable. She isn't just there to fight well and look cool doing it. Her fascination with Jules Verne, her go-games with Flynn, and her position as the last surviving ISO make her feel like emergent intelligence, trying to understand humanity from just outside it. She's observing us, learning us, almost like anthropology with a light cycle parked nearby. When she escapes into the real world, the movie lands on its clearest image of what all this means. A new form of life crossing over into human history. Not as a glitch, but as a possibility. A huge reason the movie still has a grip on people is that the grid feels designed, not just rendered. Director Joseph Kosinski didn't want it to be a stand-in for the internet or a simple rerun of The Matrix. He came from architecture and commercial design. And before the movie was even greenlit, he built a visual prototype to show Disney that this sequel could have its own material identity. That background really shows. Even though the setting is digital, the production emphasized physicality. Kosinski created 12 to 15 major sets, brought in former architecture school colleagues, and used real glass, concrete, and steel wherever possible. The grid was imagined as a kind of virtual Galapagos, evolving offline on its own server rather than mirroring the everyday web. That idea gives it a sealed, cultivated feeling, like a world that has developed its own species, rituals, and weather, even if the weather is mostly glow. And then there's the sheer technical lift. The film had 1,565 visual effects shots spread across about 10 companies, including the fully computer-generated young Clue. Jeff Bridges performed opposite John Reardon, while 4 infrared microcameras tracked 134 facial markers, and getting Clue's likeness and movement right took more than 2 years. Whatever someone thinks of the movie dramatically, that level of craft is hard to dismiss. Then there's the score, which is probably the part of Tron Legacy that achieved instant permanence. Daft Punk made a deliberate choice not to stay inside their usual synthesizer-only lane. They combined electronic music with a large orchestral component because, as Guy Manuel de Homem-Christo put it, 2 synths and a drum machine can't give you the longevity and physical presence of something like a Stradivarius. That instinct was exactly right for this movie. The score gives the film scale, weight, and emotion. It fills in the spaces where some viewers felt the script was thin, and it helps the whole thing work as an audio-visual experience, even when the plot doesn't fully click for everyone. The soundtrack's success backed that up. It reached number 6 on the Billboard 200 and eventually went platinum with 1 million copies shipped. There are plenty of movies people vaguely remember. There are fewer where people can hear a few seconds and instantly see the world again. Commercially, the movie did well. It cost about $170 million and made $409.9 million worldwide. Its $43.6 million domestic opening was seen as solid rather than huge, and a lot of the momentum came from international audiences in premium formats like IMAX 3D. Critically, though, it split people right down the middle. Rotten Tomatoes logged 51% positive reviews, and Metacritic gave it 49 out of 100. A lot of critics praised the visuals, Daft Punk's music, and Michael Sheen's very Bowie-coated caster energy, while knocking the thin characters and sometimes baffling dialogue. And honestly, that split is part of the movie's story now. Tron Legacy became a cult object because blockbuster durability isn't only about clean narrative consensus. Sometimes a film stays alive through design, music, fashion, fan culture, and the feeling of immersion people want to revisit. Disney kept that Afterlife going too, through viral marketing, theme park events, merchandise, games, an animated series, and eventually the 2025 sequel, Tron Ares. So even if Legacy never became a universally loved classic, it absolutely became a durable one. Tron Legacy endures because it offers more than plot mechanics. It gives people a world to inhabit, a sound to sink into, and a pretty resonant fear that perfection might be the least human thing we can chase. For a movie built out of light, it's got a surprisingly solid afterimage. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.